Welcome into Rally Cap, everybody. I have an announcement, big announcement to make. The friendly confines of Wrigley Field making some noise. People are getting paid, Parker. Nico Hoerner, 6-year extension. PCA, 6-year, $115 million extension. The Cubs are laying the groundwork. Man, it's exciting time if you're a Cubs fan right now.
Yeah, do you remember that time the Mets traded Crow-Armstrong for like 2 months of Javi Baez? You remember that?
The pain.
Starting to look really good for these. Now, think about this from the Cubs fan perspective, right? The Cubs had to watch their entire championship core walk out the door. They had to watch Chris Bryant become a shell of himself. Anthony Rizzo become somebody who might wear a Yankee hat if he were to ever make it to the Hall of Fame. He's not a Hall of Famer. But you might be worried about Javi Baez and watching him go and fall into, again, become a shell of himself with the Detroit Tigers, and you had to watch all of those people leave. And now there's a new core in town that is like going to be around for a while, because Bregman's going to be around for a while. Order's going to be around for a while. Crow-Armstrong's going to be around for a while. I told you I had a take. When we were about to hit record on this video, I told you I had a take.
Oh, boy.
My take is, I think that the Chicago Cubs signed Tarek Skubal this offseason, and this is a team that we're talking about as World Series contenders for the next half of a decade minimum. This team, if you're going to lock up talent like this and show that the Ricketts family is willing to spend money, if they just shell out a little bit more, a lot bit more, and give Tarek Skubal $450 million, I think that we're going to see this Cubs team at the top of NL standings for a very long time.
I'm going to be honest with you, Parker. I really don't need that in my life. I just don't. And in all seriousness, anyone who knows me knows that if the Cubs are successful, I'm happy. I love to see Chicago team be successful. I being a recovering Cub fan in my younger years, I have a lot of respect and love and admiration for that team, obviously. In all seriousness, it's refreshing to see the Ricketts family and this ownership group and this front office pour money into their young players. And this is exactly why, Parker, or not exactly why, but this was the biggest issue with that previous young core. Like, these players being a shell of themselves, yes, absolutely. But put that aside for a second. There was no commitment to those players who broke your longest championship streak in sports history, and they weren't able to lock them up. And now, hindsight 2020, but at the time, there was a big push by some of these players to lock up at least a couple of those guys, right? And it just didn't happen. And that's a whole other conversation. We can get into details of that. Should they, shouldn't they, whatever. But the fact that they locked up both Crow-Armstrong and Nico Hoerner, which I want to point out are two very specific dudes with specific skill sets. These are the type of guys, when you look at speed, on base, bat to ball, that you want to sign long term. These are the guys that hold up well. Speed, maybe not so much, right? Defense, right? Defense. Pardon me for forgetting the most important part is the defense. Like, Crow-Armstrong, that speed is slowly going to disappear. But outside of that, these are the type of players you want on your team and that you're more comfortable from a risk standpoint signing to long-term deals.
Yeah. I mean, this guy, Crow-Armstrong is probably less likely to blow his hamstring running to second base because he's so fast and athletic. And Nico Hoerner is the kind of defender that you want holding up the middle of your infield for the rest of his career, especially playing second base. First of all, one of the most underpopulated positions in all of baseball right now, because no shortstop wants to convert to second base, but no other position can really become second base. And now, these days, if you're a third baseman, you're like 30% of a second baseman, because it's the only other people that can convince to play the position. Lock up second baseman. They're not coming around very often. Marcus Semion's still making very good money playing subpar second base for a reason. So when you have the best, probably the best defensive second baseman, maybe outside of like Andres Jimenez in all of baseball, you lock him down, especially when he's good offensively. And then when you have literally, I think 1A and 1B, Crow-Armstrong and Cedon Rafaela are the best center fielders defensively in baseball. I think both of them being locked down to long-term contracts very early in their careers, well before they get through the arbitrations process, that is not a coincidence. Finding somebody that good at the hardest defensive position in the entire of Major League Baseball outside of like catcher, like, that's hard to come by. And so when you see a family like the Ricketts, like the thing that I do want to roll back around to what you were saying, clearly it was possible for them to have done what they're doing now back when Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez,
Yes.
Kyle Schwarber, all these guys were on the team. But honestly, looking now, they kind of seem like geniuses, because the only one of those guys that I
They
would want
do.
on my team right now is Kyle Schwarber. And these two guys that they just extended are guys that I do want on my team for the next 6 to 7 years. So, I
Yes.
mean, good for them. Good for
it's a
them. Jed Hoyer's out there doing something.
Yeah. He is, and people gave Jed Hoyer a lot of shit. I mean, seemingly, at least when you heard the fan dialogue and the fan rumblings about it, they were ready to let him go a year ago. They were.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
there
were.
was some frustrations about them spending money in the offseason, not investing in this team, and I think it's a good reminder for all of us as fans who are not in that office every day, like, when you are working with an ownership group that's giving you the money that the Ricketts family does and other ownership groups do, they want to see you use that money wisely. This is not a blank check. And I think fans forget that. It is never just a blank check. It is meant to be used responsibly, with data, with research, with purpose. And I got to give Jed credit. I think he's really good at that. And I think he's built a team that is seeds of a Theo Epstein team that do that very well. Let's not forget that. So, one thing I will say about Pico Armstrong, and I being in the Chicagoland area, I get this a lot. I see this a lot. You know, you have franchises in every sport across the country where you find your guy that is like the face of your franchise, like that dude. And I can tell you, being here in Chicago, seeing how Chicago treats its athletes, you go to the Bears and like Caleb Williams is that dude for the Bears. PCA in Chicago is that dude for the Cubs. He is so beloved in the short time he has been with this team, and he totally carries just that vibe and that energy of that franchise. As far as I can tell, having him not be a Cub would be an absolute travesty. So they did the right thing.
Yeah, Pete Crow-Armstrong's the kind of guy I'd be okay, like you might need to give me somebody else in as well, but I'd consider trading Roman Anthony for a guy like PCA. Like, PCA is the kind of guy that completely changes your line. I mean, well, proven. I mean, one of them's proven, one of them's not. Roman Anthony's a blank check.
Fair, yeah.
With a couple zeros pre-filled in, I would argue. But like PCA, you know exactly what you're getting at this point. Game changer, an absolute game changer. And I just want to point out right now, because now we have the benefit of hindsight. And last year, we could not believe that the Cubs didn't trade or lock up long-term or make a more competitive offer to Kyle Tucker. And now, looking at the profile of players that they have spent all the time since then acquiring, and the ones that are really the only players on this team with long-term deals, they are among the top three defenders in their position. And I'm talking about Alex Bregman, Nico Hoerner, and Pete Crow-Armstrong. So Kyle Tucker didn't profile to be the kind of player that the Cubs are looking to lock up long-term. Apparently, that's what we're seeing now. And you know what? When you take into context, like you said, it's a very Theo-style team. It's Jed Hoyer's team, who is Diet Theo Epstein. Theo traded Nomar Garcia-Parra for defense. Theo Epstein traded Nomar for defense. And you know what? He traded the entire Cubs core too. And, you know, it's starting to look like it may have worked out.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I want to go back to Kyle Tucker because that is an interesting little wrinkle in all of this. And I think the Cubs are just, they agree with us, right? Kyle Tucker is underrated. He is not a all-around, well-rounded ball player. He just is overrated to be making I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Overrated. Ugh. He's overrated. He's not a well-rounded ball player that equals 45 to 50 million a year. It's just not. And I think
definitely not 6.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God. See, it's like so freaking ridiculous that my brain can't even push it out of my mouth.
It is
stupid.
Insane.
It's stupid. It's so stupid. My brain was like, "Oh, it's not 60 because there's no fucking way it could be 60." No, it shouldn't be. No,
it's $60 million. It's $60 million. He's making the Alex Bregman contract and more than Alex Bregman's contract in half the time of Alex Bregman's contract. Anyway,
that is insane. Okay, anyway, so back to the Cubs. Yes, is you're right. They knew, like we know, that Kyle Tucker is not that guy and shouldn't be that guy. Fine, whatever. I was going somewhere with this, and now I've totally forgotten where I was going because now I'm just irritated by the $60 million that Kyle Tucker is
It's on
making.
me.
It's all your fault. But anyway, I guess I'll kind of go into this next thing with the Cubs. So all of this leads me to thinking about what can the Cubs really accomplish in 2026. You threw out that absolutely wild hot take of Tarek Skubal signing with the Cubs. Absolutely a possibility. It's a hot take, but could happen. And if that happens, you are right. We're talking about this team for quite a while. But here in 2026, okay, we in our division or our standing predictions from a couple weeks ago, we talked about this team running away with the division, clear front runners in the NL Central, possibly winning between 93 to 96 games. That 96 number, I think that's fairly realistic for this team.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see it. 96 wins. 96 wins would be like a 95th percentile season for them, right? Like that would be everything kind of went right, especially with the state that their pitching's in. And we talked about how their pitching is good. Their pitching's good, but it has to stay healthy. Like they do not have depth. What they have is a good rotation that if they get 30 starts out of 4 of them, look pretty good moving into the playoffs. Which is why I mentioned Skubal when I was making my wild and crazy hot take, because I do think that this team could be very competitive this year. But when you look at the number, the pitchers that are available in this upcoming free agent class, there's a few of them that look very enticing. I mean, Tarek Skubal is the number one, but then Kevin Gausman and Freddie Peralta also. Michael King, if he has a good season, will hit the market again. Sandy Alcantara probably will not. Depending if he's terrible this year, he might, but he hits a club option, so we'll see. Corbin Burns has not been good, so I doubt he's going to opt out. But then, like guys like Brandon Woodruff, Jack Flaherty, you get a couple, like 2 of those guys. All of a sudden, this is a completely different conversation we're having, and they are a World Series contender. And you get like a bullpen arm in there, and it's like, oh well, here come the Cubs. So it would be interesting to see what happens if they do truly like continue this defense, pitching with a good offense that they can throw out there on any given day. It will be very interesting to see what happens out there in Chicago.
So we'll end with this, Parker. If you had to make your prediction for the MVP of the Chicago Cubs in 2026, who's that going to be?
Pete Crow-Armstrong. Yeah, I don't know.
I love
That's
that.
not a hot take, but
that's not a hot take, but it's probably the right take. Let's just be honest. Yeah. All right, friends. We'll be following the Chicago Cubs all season long. And hey, we'll be following all 30 teams here on Rally Cap. So make sure you're going ahead, subscribing to all we're doing here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you like, make sure you comment. You make a comment. Tell us who's your MVP for the Chicago Cubs in 2026. We'd love to hear it. Thanks for following us.
Who's the pitcher you
Rally
have
Cap.
going to the Cubs this offseason? We'll see you guys next week.